Hello and welcome to the Ecom Sales Tax Podcast. My name is Ryan Johnson, and today I've got a special treat for you. Our VP of Operations here at Peisner Johnson, Paul Johnson. Paul, welcome.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here on the podcast with you today.
Yeah, and you guys might not know it, or maybe you can see the resemblance, but Paul and I are cousins.
That's right.
We've lived next to each other for I don't know, the last 25 years?
Long time.
Long time. So we've become really good friends.
Right.
But I would like for you to just let everyone get to know you. How you got here, how long have you been here,
Sure.
family life, what is it exactly that you do here at Peisner Johnson, all that.
Absolutely. I've been with Peisner Johnson. I started with Peisner Johnson right out of while I was finishing my undergrad, and I actually got my undergrad from the University of Texas, their Arlington campus, in economics. And I was going to school for finance. I wanted to get some kind of financial degree, whether it be econ or math or financial planning or something along those lines. I just enjoyed math and numbers. And I actually started working here at Peisner Johnson stuffing envelopes and mailing out sales and use tax returns. And over time, just kind of grew to really enjoy and love tax, sales tax specifically. And it's 12 years. It'll be 12 years this summer that I started at Peisner Johnson. So just kind of worked my way up from staff to senior staff to manager to general manager over operations and now vice president over operations. It's been a really fun ride. It's been really fun to be a part of and to see the growth and expansion at Peisner Johnson, but then also to see the legislative changes, especially over the last couple of years as we've seen big changes in waiver and people getting registered and filing more sales and use tax returns. That's kind of my history at Peisner Johnson. Personally, I've been married for also 12 years, actually, in just a couple of days. So I got married in March, and then I started at Peisner Johnson just a few months later. So it's been cool. I now have 4 kids, 2 girls and 2 boys, and we love to go camping. We love to hang out. We love to go on road trips back to Texas as we moved to Utah just a few years ago. So we do a lot of road trips back and forth to Texas, up to Canada to visit my in-laws, and up to Wyoming. Love to visit all the national parks and just tour around and have a good time. So kind of me in a nutshell.
All right, excellent. Yeah, that's a great place to start in PG, because that's where I started too, is stuffing envelopes with all the returns, mailing them out. So if you do work with us, Paul has looked at your returns.
That's right.
He's looked at them. So you know you're in good hands, because Paul is looking at them, make sure they're correct. A lot of years in that, and he knows exactly what he's doing. So that's kind of the first question. It's a good segue into our first question. Well, my question for today anyways. So as you know, we have this pandemic going around, lots of panicking, lots of people working from home, people trying to decide what they're going to do, how they're going to handle this, how they're going to self-quarantine for 2 weeks if they have to, what's going to happen. That's what they're worried about. They're probably not too worried about sales tax returns. You know, it's probably one of the last things on their mind, because they don't want to get sick, possibly die. That's my guess. So what happens if you file late because of COVID-19 or or any natural disaster that may happen in your area? I mean, what happens? What's the process?
No, that's a great question, and it's something that we've experienced only a few times, really. The one that comes to mind before this one was Hurricane Katrina in Louisiana, and there was a lot of people out of work, departments of revenue, the local parishes. But even in that instance, when there's a natural disaster or a pandemic like this that occurs worldwide, or even just in a specific area like in Louisiana and along the Gulf, um, there wasn't much publication that was put out regarding posted or post dated due dates. Now you have until March 20th to file your returns instead of them being due February 20th, or we're going to post date them a couple of months. We've seen from a federal level where they'll push back dates, but from a sales tax perspective, they don't generally come out with that. The best course of action would be to file your returns on time. If you're not able to file your returns on time because of the pandemic or because of the natural disaster, then you would work with the individual states, the local jurisdictions, and request a waiver of that penalty and interest for those specific purposes after the fact. Because they generally won't, what we've seen is very rare that they'll come out ahead of time on the 19th. Today is March 20th. Most of the tax returns are due today. And we haven't seen any publications, notices, letters that have come out from the state saying, hey, if you're affected by the COVID-19 and the coronavirus, then you've got an extra 30 days. The states generally won't do that, but they will, more times than not, they are willing to work with you after the fact if you submit a request for a waiver of penalty and interest. Some of the states just by law, they won't waive interest, but they'll waive penalty, vice versa. Some of them will waive them both, given the circumstances. So the other thing about waiver of penalty and interest that you have to keep in mind is that if you're constantly requesting a waiver of penalty and interest, or you do it more than once, more than 2 or 3 times even, then the states are like, we've already granted a waiver of the penalty and interest just 2 or 3 times now, so we're done. But for a natural disaster like this, we've seen where they're pretty willing to work with you. So just a matter of submitting that and working with the respective parties to get that cleared.
Sweet. So the only times you've seen pushback is when you've had to file a waiver a few times within a year, and they'll be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe you're just lazy or late, or you're procrastinating.
Exactly. We've seen some states who will automatically waive the first penalty and or interest upon your first offense or your first late file without a request. But in general, more times than not, you're going to have to plead before the state or the local jurisdiction. Hey, I wasn't able to file my return on time. I'm not trying to avoid or not pay you. It's just I ran into a hiccup, or I had this issue, or we're transitioning third parties, or whatever the case may be, and then work with the Department of Revenue or the local jurisdiction to get that taken care
of. How complicated can it get to send in a waiver? I mean, is it easy? Is it difficult? How long does it take?
It depends, as most things do. Sales tax. Some of them are pretty easy, and you can submit it electronically through the website. Some of them not so easy, and you gotta submit it 2 or 3 times. Hey, I've requested this penalty and interest be waived. And we've seen, depending on the amount of the waiver, is it a few $100 in penalty and interest, or are we talking about thousands in penalty and interest because you owe a lot of tax? We've seen where it can take just a matter of days, or less than a week, and we've seen where it'll take 6 months. And in some instances, in order to request a waiver, or in order for the waiver to be granted, you have to first pay the penalty and interest, and then once it's paid, you can submit a petition to have it waived, and then the state will process that and indicate yay or nay, but you have to pay it first. So again, it just depends on the state and where you're at. But most of the time, it's just a matter of it's a waiting game with the jurisdictions, unfortunately.
In my experience, I remember that, usually submitting the waiver wasn't the hard part. It was following up 1,000 times to make sure it's getting processed and getting updates on a timeline. And a lot of times they had no answer for you.
And you had to submit it
Get my
to
waiver? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I see that we got your waiver, but I don't have an update. Then you follow up a month later. No, we still don't have your waiver. What? Okay,
But
see, we submitted. It's very difficult. It can be time challenging for sure.
Yes, but they're doing a lot of work over there too. I'm sure.
Yeah, they're constantly understaffed, overworked, as they would claim. So just you got to play their game.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul. And if this is something that you are worried about and you're wondering how you're going to get your sales tax returns filed on time or waivers processed, anything like that, Paul Johnson is the one. Him and his team can get it done. So go ahead and you can reach out to us filling out the form down below, schedule your free call, and we'll get you taken care of. All right, Paul, thanks again so much for being with us today. We hope to see you on another one.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everybody.